So one of the biggest mistakes that people with anxiety can make is attempting to reason with the anxiety. Immediately when you feel anxious about something, well, first it's important to understand that your anxiety lives in a part of your brain that is not able to register language. So it communicates through sensation and emotion. There's a Stephen Phillipson is a very famous anxiety psychologist who specializes in OCD, and he calls this speaking to the barking dog. So if you're trying to tell yourself, there's no reason I should be anxious in front of this attractive stranger that I want to talk to. There's no reason I should be anxious about in front of my boss, or trying to logically talk your way through it. It won't work. It's speaking to the barking dog, because first of all, the dog doesn't understand language either, and it's barking, so it's not going to hear you regardless. So that's kind of an apt metaphor. But the biggest mistake that you can make is, as you try and reason with your anxiety, as you try and talk yourself out of it, or if you notice yourself doing that, you're lending the anxiety legitimacy. So the way of thinking about your anxiety is a misfiring of your brain associating a threat, associating a fight or flight response with a perceived threat that in actuality isn't really a threat. So because you know that it's a misfiring, because for example, that if you go and we'll just use dating, if you go and talk to this attractive stranger, your brain is going to send you signals as if it's fight or flight. Your amygdala is going to get triggered, and you'll start to have all of the sensations of fight or flight, and that'll produce all of the thoughts that maybe either make you want to talk yourself out of it or try and reason with it or whatever. But the bottom line is that the way to deal with that anxiety is to basically disregard the signal of fight or flight and act anyways. And it's really, really scary. This is called an exposure exercise. But the idea here is that I know that my brain is misfiring. And because I know that my brain is misfiring, I know that the feelings and the thoughts that I'm having due to this misfiring aren't accurate. They're distorted. So I can't really trust my feelings about this, because I know it's coming from a distorted place, a misfiring. So the way that you end up dealing with this, at least in the case of dating, is that you would decide to go and approach that stranger even though you feel the anxiety. And you would decide that the intense anxiety that you feel is a misfiring and is irrelevant. And over time, the only way to communicate to this part of your brain and reduce your anxiety is to experience whatever you're anxious about enough times to where your brain, through experience, learns that it's not something to be anxious about. It's really incredible. Anxiety is particularly interesting because it's symbolically it's like a disorder of the hero's journey. Like most people that have anxiety or a sensitive amygdala, they're gonna have anxiety their whole lives. You're never gonna get rid of it, and if you want to get rid of it, then essentially you're going to keep it around because now you're giving it legitimacy. It's going to be something that you deal with a while, but your relationship to the anxiety is what will change. And it's the ultimate hero's journey, because as you find things that you're anxious about, and as you learn to confront those things, even though you have thoughts and feelings and emotions that are pretty intense, you'll notice that you level up, and your anxiety is always kind of like picking out things for you to face, for you to kind of come into your own. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, that's the main thing that I wanted to. That's the big mistake that people make with anxiety, is they assume that the feelings and sensations are real and legitimate, and they try to reason with it. Don't reason with it. The metaphor that Stephen Phillipson uses is, there's a train coming at you, and it's going extremely fast, and you're standing on the tracks. And as it gets closer and closer and closer, You feel the anxiety of the train about to hit you. And at the last second, you decide not to step off the tracks.